evening. This is the Auburn Finance Committee. Today is July 9th, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. Please allow me to read our remote participation script. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, it's 1-786-535-3211 with an access code of 991-599-357. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are participating remotely are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. Patrick Jones.
Here.
George Graham. Here. And Stephen Consiglio.
Here.
Town officials and employees participating, and I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois.
Here.
Administrative Assistant Danielle Chamberlain-Roberts.
Here.
Okay, we don't have any members of the committee participating remotely, so we can get started. First on the agenda for this evening is the Finance Committee reorganization. Do you have any comments on?
I'd like to make a motion that because we're just making quorum tonight, that we postpone it down to the next meeting in the fall.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone the reorganization to our first formal meeting in the fall. All in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, a second is to review vote on potential transfer requests that were $250 actually we had, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of order there. We had some that were listed that the CFO approved that were less than the $250 amount. Those we have in front of us. If there's no questions, we'll consider those to be approved. Now regarding transfers that are greater than the $250 amount. The first one we have is the police department.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion that these 5 are all going to the same account. So if we could please take them as one when we go to vote.
Certainly. We have a motion to accept those 5 going to the same account as one. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Very good.
Just sitting in a hole.
Deputy Chief, congratulations. I understand the coming days, week,
Yeah.
will be some changes. Congratulations. Very excited
job.
for you.
I don't know if I can adjust this.
Yeah. We should be able to.
We did set that up.
Motion brings a smaller chair.
I'm at the little kids' table.
Would you like to cover some of the items you have before us for transfers?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members, appreciate it. Taking the series of transfers that go into patrol officers, essentially, there was a mistake made by me where I misinterpreted some of the encumbrance things, and I had transferred some money out of this same account earlier in the year based on what I believe was the available balance, or was going to be the available balance in the encumbrance, but I should have been a little bit more conservative with those initial transfers, and I think, as I learn, as I go forward, I'm going to hang on to this responsibility for probably the next year or so, and I'll be a little bit more conservative next time. So I think if I had just, even if it was $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000, I think I would have been just fine.
Comes to about 5,600. Yeah.
I just originally moved it to overtime, and it ended up being short because of the way the end of the year fell with us. Because obviously our pay week starts Saturday, and we had officers that were working 3 out of their 4 days were in FY25 versus with the rest of the departments, we're able to split 80-20 for the FY26 versus FY25. We weren't able to do that because in some cases, the pay week represented, or those 3 days in the pay week represented, over 40% of of the week. So that was that, as far as those ones go.
Any questions on these? Okay, I'll just read them into the record. From the overtime account, amount requested $1,307 going to patrol officers. Reason given, line deficit. From the physical fitness account, amount requested $1,000, also going to patrol officers, also line deficit. From office equipment/lease, amount requested $1,000. From equipment repair, amount requested $1,100. And from the food account, amount requested $1,106.24, all going to the patrol office account for a line deficit. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor? Thank you. This one from the police relative to similar thing, sir?
Which one are you looking at?
It's a sergeant one.
is-
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the
sergeant.
same thing. It's just
Yeah.
a sergeant account.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's the same reason. It was a miscalculation by me, essentially related to the encumbrances.
Okay, from the office equipment/lease account, amount requested $1,783.50, going to the sergeant's account, reason given, line deficit.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is, motion and a second, all in favor? Do you have any other ones, Chief?
What about I think, the dispatch one? Oh, it's on there. Okay, my apologies.
Thanks.
Thank
It
you.
was a late arrival for me. Just found out yesterday. All right, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Are you going to the fire?
Yeah, I was gonna try and, yeah. See it?
He's in the, is he in the large one?
Must be, yes, this is right here.
The big one.
Yeah, why
Okay.
don't we at least get him to talk about it, then he doesn't have to wait? We can just say he has a transfer.
Deputy, you want to come up and discuss what's gonna? That one's gonna take time just to read into the record, so.
Do you want me to just give a little introduction if I could?
Yeah, if you could, we'll do that larger one first and then,
Okay. So in the large transfer, there's a couple of line items for the fire that needed some money transferred in. The firefighter's salary, it was similar to what Deputy Chief Mills says. There was, we had to pay the actual hours that were worked, and there were some transfers that came out of the firefighter's salary account that went to overtime. So is the $18,865 that's requesting to go into firefighter's salary. And then the overtime that ended up being over budget is $14,278.
Chief, do you have anything for us?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So that's where we're at right now.
Karen, did you want to just, we might as well do this one while we've got it in front of us. Did you want to explain what this, this is a little bit different of a format than we're used to seeing and,
I have a question unless you answer it, so.
so.
Right. So there were quite a few accounts that needed increases. And it was really kind of difficult to match things up one for one because of the fact that the reserve accounts were almost depleted. So I had to go through all the departmental budgets to find funds to cover the line items that needed the increases. So I figured the best way to display it would be to do them all in this one large one here. And we can go over each of the ones that need increases. And then, like I said, I just went through the departmental budgets for some of the accounts to cover them that had surpluses left over at the end of the year.
Questions on this in terms of?
I have a question. Just at a glance, without mentioning exact numbers, at a glance, it appears to me that the firefighter 2 is not equal to the firefighter from a value. And
That's
so on
that's
some of
correct. That's
these-
why it's done as an omnibus, because I couldn't match things up department by department. So, but it's an interdepartmental. It's from various departments to various departments. And I also wanted to cover the deficits in the snow and ice accounts.
So it would, is it, you wouldn't move it, say, all of these from these accounts into the reserve account, and then as a value move it out, you can actually go from say, snow and ice or DPW to fire on wage?
Yes.
That's, yeah, no, I'm just asking. I was just making sure. Okay.
Did I understand that question correctly? So on the right side, you've got 229,000. So that money all would have gone back to the reserve account at the end of the year?
No, it would close to the general fund and become part of free cash.
They would have spent under their budget.
Correct. Yes. So this is just in between departments, or from one department to another.
The general question I have is, if we can do this at the end of the year, why can't we do it in the middle of the year? You know,
Are
like,
you just saying,
like, all of the departments are sort of, you know, they have a crystal ball at the beginning of the year. Then they say, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. And then reality shows up, and it's totally different. And so they know that they're not gonna do X or Y or Z, right? But then they come in and they say, you know, I need to move 4,000 from this account to that account. And, you know, because some are positive and some are negative. And we kind of look at it strictly from, you know, as a department manager job to sort of cover those issues. But at the same time, if the department managers know that something isn't going to happen, wouldn't it make a little bit of sense to just swap it off the budget earlier? And then we could be doing transfers from the general fund anyway?
well, I think what the issue is a lot of times we don't know until towards the end of the fiscal year how things are gonna, if they're not gonna do a certain thing, or how things are gonna shake out, if there's going to be any funds available. That's why it would be really hard to do it anytime other than towards the end of the fiscal year. And generally, we do try to do the intra-departmental. We would like the department heads to be able to cover within their budget. But just like we've done before, as an example, for like the fire overtime, we've gone to, besides the reserve fund, we also went to dispatch, and we've done some transfers from there. So we have done some transfers between departments as well.
I guess my sort of also in the back of my mind, you know, you have the ability to do a $250 transfer, you know, between account numbers, you know, 21112 and 21113. But, you know, is there that much of a risk to actually give that authority to the department heads? Like, as an oversight body, do we need to be worried about, you know, $74 or $800? Because for the most part, we're not stringing anybody up here.
Patrick, you seem
I'm
like,
not saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to, you can't necessarily give it to the department heads. And I think part of that is within job descriptions or the legislature. These budgets are warrants, and that means they're law. And by law, only certain people are allowed to move money from one account to the other. So even though it might seem like in its simplest form that you could have, well, it's going to not be a simple budget, but you could have a DPW budget, let's say, and they might be able to move it as a department, but technically their responsibilities aren't to take money from one account and move it to another to cover or change an amount. Their responsibility is to stay within the budget and to spend the money accordingly as they asked for. So it's not necessarily that they can't do it because they're not capable. It's that they can't do it because I believe the structure, the legal structure of the budget and its players doesn't allow them to.
Except somewhere there's an invoice, well, wages are slightly different, but somewhere there's an invoice that has to get coded to, you know, MRO supplies compared to, you know, capital equipment compared to, you know what I mean? Somebody's still making a judgment, and it seems.
But it is.
People are, I don't know if the CFO does that, or
Right.
if the department says,
I was going to say, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the department might code it and send it to you, but ultimately the accounting department and treasury department have the responsibility of making sure that that gets, in other words, you have to make sure that that department didn't erroneously code it to the wrong place or that it's being paid. We have a fiscal responsibility to make sure that the monies that are going towards that are being actually delineated to it.
That is correct.
So it's an audit. It's an audit trail.
I
Yeah.
remember many years ago, one of the select board members complaining that, I forget if it was toner or a copier, and one was coded as capital expense when it was obviously a consumable expense, or vice versa. And, you know, that kind of granular detail, you know, we're sort of just taking everybody's word on it anyway. So that's my, you know, like, if we don't see the invoices, we're only approving what you've told us anyway, and you're approving what the department has told you. I mean, granted, you've got an invoice to match up to it, but if the department as a whole has, you know, $500,000 to spend, you know, does it, you know, and it's in wages or overtime, like, couldn't those be a subcategory of labor expenses? And then it doesn't necessarily need to be, because it's really a management question about overtime and straight time, as opposed to a financial question, unless they're blowing their budget. And that, of course, you know. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure that would bother the State House. They have their own budget problems, I suspect.
If I could, I think what we'd have to do is probably when the budget is voted by town meeting, it probably would have to be voted as subtotals rather than these individual line items. Like, we present all the individual line items, so I think we'd have to say, you know, like, subtotal salaries, $1 million, subtotal expenses, $500,000. And then you could move within those, but that's not how Auburn has been doing it. We've been keeping all the line items so that they're positive or zero.
I mean, I don't know if there's an appetite to do that. I just, you know, we deal with a lot of these are very small transfers. And I'm one, you know, and you've got people coming in after hours, and I'm not sure we're actually, sometimes I wonder if we're helping them or making their job harder. You know what I mean? Trying to get the numbers to line up, because the numbers aren't going to really change. You know, if you have to buy, you know, an air tank, you're going to have to buy an air tank. And then whether it's considered consumable or maintenance or it was in the budget and you're going to take it from, you know, cleaning supplies. I'm not sure, to me, sometimes I feel like we're micromanaging.
Can I
We don't
add?
necessarily have a lot of data to micromanage to begin with.
Can I just, I don't know that the only question I had was the imbalance of to and from. I don't know if we have to keep the deputy chief here much longer because he answered our question. I know that this could get very involved, so I'm being cognizant of your time here.
If you have no questions,
I think we're
evening.
good, Deputy Will.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Should we wait with our questions for this until we get to it? Or
I think
do
we might as well,
have-
we've had the discussion now. Why don't we,
Sure. I do have 2 points. I'm looking through some of this, and actually, I'm thinking sort of a little bit of the opposite of my peer in that, yes, some of these are de minimis, or do we waste time? But it concerns me that we have an assistant library director at 26,000 and plus. We have debt interest at 11,009, and we have unemployment at 19. And the reason why I raise some of these questions is because debt interest is usually established at the beginning of the year. And I know that we've had a big changing of the guard, we've had a lot going on, but I would think both principal and interest would have been would have been settled at the beginning of the budget because we'd have amortization schedules.
We borrowed in August.
We borrowed in
But
August.
after the beginning of the fiscal year, so it was projected.
It was projected, but nowhere throughout the year. And I think I think this is some of the stuff that is sort of eating at me, is I'm sort of looking at it the opposite of what Steve is looking at it, and I don't want to sound harsh, but $230,000 of taxpayers' money is being spent at the end of the year to fix $230,000 worth of department.
Yeah, but you have to remember, 150 some odd thousand is snow and ice of that.
Okay, that's fair. Because I think where I was going with the 11,000 is the debt interest is this year. So it sounds like, did you clear it in August when you borrowed and then you had extra? Because we're taking it from there. And that's what I'm trying to,
That's correct. We budgeted
Right.
about 70,000 for the interest, and the payment was only 50
something,
some
right?
odd,
We actually did well there and
Correct.
we had ourselves covered, but there was a residual that, because we paid it off, I don't want to say a premium, but there was a difference because we paid it off in August and we were 11,000 over budget.
Well, we didn't know exactly what the interest rate was going to be
Right.
either until we borrowed.
And you gave me the answer I was looking for, but half of it is snow and ice. But still, I just want to make note of it because it's a chunk of change. $250,000 if we round up. So not to include the transfers during the year.
Well, like I said, I think it's about 150, so it's not half.
No, but and I
300.
and I don't raise this as a concern for the financial reporting or the role of the accounting department. I look at this more as a conversation for the budget process and the budget approval processes. As Steve just mentioned, all of this is approved at the beginning of the year, and we no sooner get into the midpoint of it, and we're already finding out that we've got some people that we haven't been able to fill roles, and in other areas we've learned that we have a deficit. So we're already moving money, and I'm just trying to point out that that kind of activity has sort of increased over the years. And so as a finance committee member and a person in Auburn who is paying taxes, I'm noticing the volume increase. And I'm just pointing it out at the moment. I'm not speculating an opinion on either side. So, we're moving 230, yes, half of it's snow and ice, but still $130,000 of this money is $130,000. Because like we said, we've been through COVID, we've been tight on managing our budgets. We've probably, knowing that we've wanted to hit a reserve account or two, we're managing our money as fiscally responsible as we can. It's not a negative comment, but when you get to mid-year, end-of-year transfers and it's this size of the value of money, it's a little concerning. That's all. For me, it is.
George, you have anything? I know
Yeah, just look at the numbers, looks like, about 165 is snow and ice, and then really 33 is fire, so you really take that out, there's really not much left.
Right.
Not to say it's not a lot, but.
Right, it's 70.
Yeah, I'm just going to insert my comments. To a degree, I kind of like this from the management perspective in that I think historically, I think people, whether it's municipal or public sector government, there's that mindset that if it's in an account, I need to spend it, because if I
Right.
don't spend it, I won't get it
won't
again.
get it back.
I won't get it back the following year. So I think that there is, I think we should take this as a positive, and then some of these accounts that
Sure.
the department heads did not just spend money for the sake of spending money.
Right.
And that we were able to apply it to shortages in other places. So I'm going to take it on a positive.
And also,
And I think it's,
I agree with that. And I also think part of the reason, which, to your point, Patrick, that there seems like a lot of volume is because they're actually running it very tight and, you know, like,
Yeah, but when we do the budget, we give them, we're really careful about adding someone onto the payroll. I mean, there are people that have come before us and they've had to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 years just to get a half of a body at maybe 26,000, or a half a body like the both police and fire. They've just both added someone to their payrolls, and because of the impact it had on their budget, they waited and did a half a year, and they're going to start them mid-year this fiscal year. So that is 1/5 of the amount of money that's right here. But yet we're freely moving it now.
Yeah, and Patrick, I will say, as George pointed out, some of the bigger ones on there, some of these things are always a moving target. Electric,
Yeah,
streetlights,
sure.
gas and oil, those are always sort of moving targets relative to costs. And then a lot of the other ones are library, and I think the library is just started its sort of transition with a new library director and positions and reorganization. So I think the fact that there's money there doesn't really concern me as much either. So I think some of the other bigger, the tens of thousands ones are in accounts that aren't unexpected, I would say.
Sure. But I think, when we get the individual budget sheets, nobody, like at a glance, I'm trained, I can look and say, oh, this comes to $100 in transfers. I can flip over and look at the police tonight really quick and say, oh, it's 5,600. But I'm not exactly going home with a calculator and then zipping and saying, oh, wow, we did $75,000 worth of transfers tonight.
Sure.
But when you present it like this and it's at year end, I would be remiss in my role if I didn't make that assessment, that, we're really careful how we're operating with our budgets all year, but it just, to Steve's point, and, the reserve accounts are depleted, this would have gone back to the general fund. However, it's not, though. We have to cover deficits in other areas. So my understanding of snow and ice were that they were federally funded, and that I know that you can run snow and ice at a deficit. And my understanding of that was because that at the end of the year, it was the one account that you would know that you would be getting funding from the federal government for.
No, the federal government doesn't give us any money unless there's a federal disaster declared. So either we treat it this way and we transfer to cover it, or we
Right.
have to go on the recap, and it takes away
from the recap, I understand.
From the levy.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, I don't want us to get too far off
Nope.
track on this one.
No, but it's what happens when you present it this way.
No, I understand. But I do want to just sort of bring, Steve brought up something I was going to try and insert today, and you brought up in that a lot of what we do is sort of getting into the minutia of department budgets. And I think it's sort of a request, at least for me, and I certainly defer to the committee, and maybe it's something we discuss at, next meetings, is that a lot of times when we're presented with a budget, it's already based upon a plan by the CFO and town manager as to how far along, how much of 2.5 we're going to get into, what the budget's going to look like. You've already sort of started meeting with department heads to sort of strategize. And then we end up just sort of, it's pretty far down the road by the time we see it. So it's kind of difficult to say, well, can you cut out this one? And then, it's difficult to sort of to do that. And then whereas I think we would like, personally, I would like to have more of a role in those initial phases, say, well, how far are we going to push the envelope this year? This is our anticipated numbers, where, are we going to push all the way to 2.5? Or as a committee, are we going to say, hey, when we go before town meeting and say we approve the budget, is it because we approved, very detailed things that the department heads, or really should we be approving that we also agree that we should be pushing, how far we should be pushing the envelope for the budget? So I don't know if it's something that we can be included in earlier, if the committee has any sort of thoughts on that. Because I think I've been blessed in my time at the committee. Money has been good, and it hasn't
Well,
really
and
been-
actually, that's sort of where I was going, which is partly why I'm raising the point that I am, is because we just all got our tax bills for next year, and we all understand that, what the impact of decisions were made at last town meeting. And so I just, as a finance committee member, I think we have to be cognizant that there are times when when things are really well and we're able to bless things and we're able to allow for a lot of movement and activity, but we would be remiss in our roles and we wouldn't be fiscally responsible if we're letting some of this stuff happen and we're not questioning it, on behalf of the town. So that's our role. Our role is to somewhat police this, and that's sort of why I'm heading in the direction that I am, not to be a negative person, but we've had the ability to to have a decade of prosperity and ARPA money and a lot of other stuff to allow us to get a lot of stuff done. And now I think, as our chair has mentioned, if we were more involved with the process, we could be supportive of more the capital plan, the master plan, and the goals of the town. And I know we're working on some of that stuff because my understanding from now, who is the acting town manager, is that when we go into budget season this year, one of the things that I heard is along with our budget packet, we're supposed to be getting goals and other things that are supposed to be going along with their budgets. So I'm looking forward to that,
Yeah, we'd asked them really to, the department heads,
to defend their budgets.
to actually come in and
To defend.
sell, yeah, defend it, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah,
So it's just a point of discussion
yeah.
to be brought back, but any other questions on this one? Otherwise, I'm gonna probably.
You're going to read away?
I'm gonna read away. I'm not going to do, I'm gonna read the description in the, whether they're in the increase column or the decrease column. I'm not gonna read account numbers, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so this is the Town of Auburn request for interdepartmental transfers for FY 2025. So this is going to be from the increase column. TM salary, 3,185. TC salary, 321. Assistant treasurer, 951. TC clerical. Yeah, you'd set me up with a name tag, yeah, it's for a reason, so I could do this. TC clerical, 717. General counsel, 2,924. Negotiator, 9,438. Special, I guess that's litigation, thank you, 10,241. Firefighter salary account, 18,865. Fire OT, 14,278. TC bill print, 3,505. Snow and ice OT, 14,402. Snow and ice equipment, 26,022. Snow and iced sand, $15. Snow and ice salt, $123,531. Snow and ice property damage, $764. And that is the end of the increase, which on the total at the bottom, $229,159. So these will be coming from the accounts that will be decreased. Reserve fund, $14,422. Salary reserve, $4,810. Assistant accountant, $2,748. Account travel meetings, $1,444. Assessor training, $2,488. TC tax title, $5,446. TC cert notes, $2,998. TC interest on abatements, $800. HR generalist, $1,138. HR clerical, $1,479. HR office supplies, $1,600. HR professional development, $2,622. HR medical exams, $4,000. Town clerk listings, $1,100. Fire tech support, $3,000. Communications director, $2,131. Dispatch OT, $3,500. Dispatch training, $1,346. Inspection salary, $4,400. Inspection clerical, $4,490. Compliance officer, $6,237. Van driver, $8,000. Library director, $22,070. Library associates, $5,000. Children's librarian, $8,496. Assistant library director, $26,631. Debt and interest, $11,929. Unemployment, $19,887. Town hall equipment maintenance, $3,005. Electric, $20,000. Streetlights, $12,000. General services OT, $1,000. Gas, oil, diesel, $13,000. Snow and ice storm meals, $2,898. Snow and ice plow blades, $3,044. That comes to a total in that column of $229,159.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Are we accepting, approving, or approving?
Approving, motion to approve, sorry.
Stay consistent,
Accept,
right?
move, approve, yeah.
Motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
Oops, sorry.
Get back in order now.
So just, this is something really that, a tool that you'll just use at the year-end transfers mostly, you think, or throughout the year?
No, I would do it at year end.
Year-end, right.
Okay, I'm sorry, we got Joanna Packman on the line being very patient. You there, Joanna?
Good evening.
There she is. Do we have one, two?
I just have highway, cemetery.
Looks like we have 4 relative to DPW, is that correct? Okay, so why don't we, we'll start with the DPW highway. There's 2 from wages. Going from the wages account, amount requested $895, going to building maintenance, reason given, transfer to repair DPW plotter. And also from wages, $453, going to the protective clothing account, uniforms per union contract. Any on this, questions on this transfer for the DPW director? Do I have a motion on this one?
Motion to accept the first one. We have to do them separately, or we have to take a motion to do 2?
I'm sorry, yep. So first,
A motion for the first.
motion on the first one, from the wages, $895 to building maintenance. I have a motion to approve. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And from wages, $453 to protective clothing. Do I have a motion on that one?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor? All right, thank you. This one is for DPW Cemetery. This is from one wage account to another wage account?
Yeah, this is coming from cemetery wages, which is the 014211, and it's going into parks wages, 014911.
Okay. Amount requested, $3,232, transfer will eliminate deficit in the account.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? This one is from the wages account, amount requested $275, going to the overtime account, reason given, transfer will eliminate deficit in account.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Parks, from the Parks Department, from the labor account, amount requested $4,000, going to the VMC maintenance account, reason given, account shortage. Joanna, can you just tell us what VMC maintenance is?
Sure, thank you. So it's the Veterans Memorial Corridor maintenance. This year we had a project to replace the electrical and the lighting at the Veteran Memorial Parks. And the project it went over budget more than we expected.
Any questions on this one?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Thank you. And from the sewer division, this is
Fiscal year '26.
okay. This is our first, is that first FY '26? Joanna, you get to be our first FY '26 transfer. I don't know if you get a plaque for that or anything, but, so this one, FY '26, this is coming from the contingency account. Amount requested $6,000, and that is to the UBWPAD, which is the Upper Blackstone Water, help me, Joanna.
Pollution Abatement District.
Okay. Pollution abatement, you beat us to it. Okay. This is to cover the FY 2026 UBSW assessment. You're getting us with the acronyms here tonight, Joanna. You want to explain this one and how you end up being the first?
Sure. Unfortunately, it was estimated that our assessment was going to be about $1,650,000, and it was about $4,000 more than expected. In addition to that, we are currently working with Worcester to evaluate the properties that might be in Worcester getting sewer from Auburn and vice versa. So we also have money kind of set aside for that, to be able to cover those costs. So we're still evaluating that, but we know that there's going to be money that will need to be paid out to through Upper Blackstone to the city of Worcester.
Questions on this one?
This might be for the CFO. The contingency account is, because I don't have their budget memorized, is there a contingency account in the DPW?
It's in sewer.
It is in sewer.
Yeah, so the transfer is all within the sewer enterprise fund.
Sewer enterprise fund, okay.
Any other questions?
Motion to accept, approve.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient, sitting, waiting for your turn.
Thank you.
Chris is
Thank you
waiting
for your time.
too now. CCTV.
And the last transfer we have for this evening is Auburn Community TV. It is a amount requested coming from the legal account. Amount request is $750 going to the part-time wages account. And the reason given is to cover final payrolls for FY '25. And your reason should be just to make sure Rich gets paid. That's all we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not as old as he used to be, not as young as he used to be. That's 15 additional meetings. And
Additional meetings covered that you're providing staffing for. Any questions on this one?
I don't, go ahead.
Go, Steve.
Long meetings, that's,
yeah, those 3-hour meetings required some tag team camera operators, so it just added a few.
We'll keep that in mind as we, the nights get long sometimes.
Actually, my question was with some of the increase in your budget next year and with the growing demand that's being placed on you, are you comfortable with next year's budget? Do you feel
Yep.
that? Okay. Really isn't specifically to this, but it's rare that you come to us. So motion to approve.
second.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Very good. Thank you, Chris. Okay, we didn't have anything else on tabled. We had some meeting minutes that we were provided tonight. If there's no questions on those, we shall consider those as accepted. And Danielle was kind enough to provide us all a electronic and a copy of the June 25 open meeting law guide and educational materials. Some light reading for us in our free time. Any other business or questions or?
Just an idea, we've moved into the new fiscal year. We're pretty much set for we just did our first transfer for 26. Is it looking like you'll not see us until September, October? Or you never know?
I'm not 100% sure, because we were discussing the insurance for fiscal year '26. Some of the quotes are coming in a little bit on the high side, so if we do need something, we'll let you know. Otherwise, we'll take our break for the summer, and we might have to see each other maybe once before the fall.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Have a great remaining summer.